So welcome everyone. Thank you guys for joining us for this month's episode in our Discover Tennessee History webinar series. I am Kira Duke with the Teaching with Primary Sources program at MTSU, and I'm just kind of playing host for the series. So a couple things before we get started today. If you would, please be sure to keep your mics muted throughout the presentation unless we're doing some discussion. And that just helps us to have a cleaner audio for the recording. And if you're joining us live, go ahead and rename yourself so we see your first and last name in the participant list, and that just helps us kind of track who is participating and who we're responding to. And third, we do like these sessions to be interactive. So if you would, go ahead and open up that chat box and say hello, tell us, where you're joining from. And let us know if this is your first time joining us for one of these sessions. You also have the option of using the reaction buttons as we go through. And again, feel free to use those as we go through the session as well. So for this series, and again, this is the second year that we have done this series with our Discover Tennessee History Collaborative, we have a Padlet where you can find all of the resources for the different sessions within the webinar series, both for this year as well as last year's session. So you can use this link right here, and that will get you to that Padlet page, again, where you'll find all the things that are going to be shared today, as well as things from past sessions. And you'll also be able to access the recordings. Of course, we get the recording for today will be added tomorrow, but you'll find recordings for the previous sessions there as well. And you can use that link or the QR code. So today our presenters are the East Tennessee Historical Society, and that will be Lisa Oakley and Layla Smallwood. So I'm going to turn things over to them.
Lisa, do you want to start? You unmuted yourself. Sure. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I'll just say hi. I'm here in support of Layla. It's so good to see everyone. Welcome to Knoxville virtually, to the East Tennessee History Center. And we would love to have folks come and visit the Museum of East Tennessee, but I don't know about you all, but I'm really anxious to see what our museum education program manager has in store for us tonight, and introducing the exhibit and some really creative digital programming. So welcome, and we hope to see everybody in the future, either virtually for a workshop here at the History Center downtown in Knoxville, or otherwise. So welcome.
Okay, hi y'all, can everybody hear me? Perfect, okay. So today we are going to be sharing, and use your thumbs up, use reactions, talk to me in the chat box. I have the iPad over on the other side of me so I can kind of see what everybody's saying. But welcome to the Museum of East Tennessee History. How many of y'all have visited us in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee before? If you have, let me know in the chat box, give me a thumbs up. I saw someone raise their hand. Okay, cool, awesome. So we have a lot of people who have visited us before, some who maybe haven't yet. So we are located, like I said, in downtown Knoxville. It's a fun day trip. Please come visit us. Today, I'm going to be featuring a few virtual strategies for teaching with artifacts, for teaching with like text documents, text analysis, looking at stuff in depth. And we are going to be doing this using what I call a virtual escape room or breakout room. How many of y'all have done something like this, either in your classroom or with your family members, something like that, friends before? If you have, give me a yes or a thumbs up. Cool, I see some people have. Okay, I did as well a few years ago. We did not escape, sadly, but I hope everybody gets to escape today. So what we're gonna be doing is using what I call an escape room or breakout room using Google Forms. How many of y'all are familiar with Google Forms? Cool, okay. It's very straightforward making these, using these for your students. It's just a little time consuming. You have to make sure that you have all the text that you need, all the images. And of course it's great because you can clear responses or get responses at the end, looking at, it collects emails, things like that if you want it to. So it's very helpful for anybody, whether you use Google Classroom or Canvas, excuse me, or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with y'all. I always say it's like we have to announce that we're sharing our screens, right? That's kind of the world that we live in now. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and share this with y'all. Let me move my little people around. There we go. Sorry, my bar. There we go. Let me just close that. All right. So let me open this. And this is Canva. I don't know how many of y'all have used Canva before. It's great. It'll display. It's great. It's free for teachers, and you get all of these great different text, different images, graphics you can use as well. So what we're going to be doing today is exploring using an escape room strategy, activities throughout the this session using escape room strategies, and how you can do that in the classroom or how you can do it with a historic site or one of our Discover Tennessee History partners. This activity is going to use the East Tennessee Historical Society's artifact cards. These were created through a Comcast grant, so they're already printed. For our teachers who are in East Tennessee who want a copy of that, we have these printed for you. But if you're not in East Tennessee or can't get to Knoxville very easily, we do have these available online today too. So I'm going to show you all where you can find these artifact cards that we're going to be using for this activity today as well. So this activity is going to really push you, as well as your students, hopefully, today to ask and answer questions, explore artifacts, and really investigate the past, right? To think like an historian. Okay, so we're going to be completing this together virtually. So with that being said, I know we have a pretty, we don't have a huge group today. So if you want to type in the chat box or you see something you want to work collaboratively, that's totally fine. We are going to work on this together today. If you want to also work on this on your own device, please visit the linked Padlet, that QR code right there. You can scan it and it will bring up the Padlet with all our information. So for this activity, you do not have to physically be at the Museum of East Tennessee History. We have created activities like this for teachers who want to come and be with their students in the museum. I have something that is similar to this platform, but you're actually in the gallery. You're looking for artifact cards. You're looking for artifacts that are in the gallery all throughout. I have one for the entire permanent Voices of the Land exhibit. So if you want to come see us today, if you like this, if you want to schedule a field trip, whether you're in East Tennessee or not, let me know, because we have something like this similar for our gallery for in-person school visits. In that Padlet, like Kira said, you just use that QR code. It is right here. We are the November 9th one. That's where we are today. So just make sure that if you have any questions, you're looking for the link, it's going to be right here. So on this November 9th, I have the escape room, and it's through Google Forms. So just go ahead and click on that if you'd like to work alongside us. I'm going to also be showing it on my screen and zooming in as we go along. Okay, does anybody have questions before we get started? Okay. Let me pull back up my chat box. All right, let's get started then. Okay. So you just click on that link like you would any other Google Forms as we're going through. Click on that. And I am going to clear this form just in case. This is a good way to do this with your students. You can do it as a class or assign this individually through Google Classroom or whatever platform you're using. But again, we're going to be doing this together today as a group. Okay. Here we go. So going through, as you're looking at these questions, put your answers in the chat box for me. This is something that your students can do alongside you on your big screen or on their own platforms as well, on digital platforms. So the first challenge, where is the East Tennessee History Center or the Museum of East Tennessee History located? And you have to pick an answer to continue. So go ahead in the chat box, type your answer for me as we're going forward. Okay, I see some people already answering. Good. Knoxville, Tennessee, those are some answers. Good. So this is just an intro to what we're doing right now. You were in the Museum of East Tennessee History with me, and I wanted just to introduce the space to you, where we are with our learners today. So everybody said Knoxville, Tennessee. You are correct. So let's click on Knoxville, see what happens. There we go. And I have these little things built in, these little memes that you can do. And these are great because you can just plug them in for your students going forward. But I do want to show you if you got the wrong answer. So let's say your students are like, I think that's in Chattanooga. I've been there, right? I swear it's in Chattanooga. They click on it. It's okay. Try again, right? It's not going to let you, when you click next, they think they maybe can go to the next question, even though they got it wrong. You have to go back and re-answer this. It's going to take you back to this part of the form. So it's in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we're going to go to our next question. Good. Okay, so this is one of the fun ones where we have cracked the codes. And we're going to have a few of these throughout where you're using images or emojis or different symbols. So I want you to take a minute and crack the code here. When you guess it, put it in the chat box for me. What is this code that we are trying to crack? And all of these questions are going to be specific to the Tennessee Frontier section of our gallery, that early statehood, pre-settlement history here. Good. I see a lot of y'all are answering in the chat box. Good. Cherokee. I showed this one to someone this week and they thought this was an apple. So I'm glad you all figured out that this is a cherry. Good. So Cherokee, let's see. And the cool thing about Google Forms is I can type and talk at the same time. You can set it up to where the students have to have the correct spelling, the correct capitalization, or they can't go on. So if I do this, let's see, oh, try again. Make sure to capitalize the first letter, make sure you're spelling correctly. So once I put that in, I can go on to the next question. And I made these to our artifact cards. So a lot of this stuff that you're seeing will be like our artifact cards, whether you're using them online or in person. This will be something that you can use to pass out to your students, maybe do a jigsaw, something along those lines to make sure that everybody can come to the table and participate. So on this, I have just a little bit of information here about what this question was about, who the Cherokee are, what area they occupied in the 1700s, pre-1700s, and how that settlement kind of migrated, whether it was voluntarily or forced. Okay, good. You ready for the next question? And this will be something that your kids, you could have a clock running. I usually have a clock running when we do it in person here. They're competing and writing down their times, something that can get kind of competitive. If you have students who are competitive, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the next thing is using a jigsaw puzzle. And I showed something like this before with TPS where we did jigsaw puzzles for political cartoons. This is through another platform called Jigsaw Planet. And as far as I know, it's safe, it's usable in the schools. And I know the State Museum uses it as well. So it's a platform that we've used in a lot of different places. So you can click on this link here. But in this, you need to make sure in your directions you're being clear with your students. After you complete the puzzle, come back to this form. Because this puzzle, once you finish it, it's not going to tell you much. So this puzzle here is of an artifact. And we're just going to take a minute and put it together. And if you're doing this at home, see if you can beat me. Okay, so this puzzle that we're putting together here is pretty easy. You just slide the pieces around. And what I love about this puzzle and this platform is that if you have students who are puzzle whizzes, for example, they can solve a puzzle in like a minute with no problems at all, not breaking a sweat. You can make this puzzle using this platform bigger. You can actually, if you want to make this puzzle 40 pieces, you can. If you want to make this puzzle a little bit different layout, you can do it. So this puzzle, after you go through, put and click all the pieces together, will be a basket. So this is something that you will use with your students to have them, you could have them compete in teams to see who could get this in. I've done this in the past to do breakout rooms, and I have students, if they're old enough to do breakout rooms, they are in there with 3 or 4 people. They are trying to compete to see who can get to the next phase as quick as possible. So yeah, it's a basket. Good. So once we have this puzzle made, you would go back to the form and you would click through and say, I've done the puzzle. And this is where we're featuring those artifact cards. This is the one I just showed you, right? So what is the artifact picture made out of? And this is where we have to get into that reading. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit for y'all and read for a second. What is this Cherokee basket, Cherokee work basket made out of? When you see it, type it in the chat box for me. Good, good. So I see some answers there. Any other people want to guess or put in your answer, chime in? Good. So this is where we're having to actually read the artifact card, right? And if you were in the museum doing this, again, you could do this on site too, but this one is created specifically so you don't have to be here. We have this basket over here at the museum, and you can look at it and find the exhibit text that goes along with it. So you're having to explore and find these pieces throughout. Good. Okay. So we said it's made out of river cane, right? So we're going to go forward. But if we had gotten that wrong, it would have taken us back. We wouldn't have been able to go on to the next part of our question, the next part of our escape room and challenge. Okay, good. So here's another challenge here. What are the colors of the trade beads pictured? What colors do we see? And this is another one of our artifact cards right here. Good. Okay, good. Right, so we see these colors here. And what I did on this answer, I didn't want to make it extremely specific. This answer, I did not lock for a specific response. So let's just say I wanted to put blue. That's fine. Let's just say I wanted to put white. It's going to accept either of those answers. It will also accept blue and white. So this one, I just want a response because students are going to be able to pick out these colors and tell us what they see, right? So I just want a response on this one. But on this one, what are the Cherokee beads made out of? Use the text in the image below for a clue. So another one of our artifact cards. Let's zoom in. What are these trade beads made out of? And these are also on display in the museum in our frontier section, in our Tennessee frontier section. Okay, I see some responses. Good. Yeah, so these trade beads are made out of glass, but you really have to read to see that, right? Can you tell that the beads are glass? It's really not said that the beads are glass until you get to that what do you see part. So you're gonna have to dig a little bit. Your students would have to read and kind of dig into this text that we also have in our exhibit. Good. Oops, don't do that. All right, do y'all have any questions for me right now? Questions? Okay, I'm gonna go on to our next challenge. I'm gonna click glass, but if I clicked metal or cloth, it wouldn't let me go forward. It'd make me go try again. Okay, good. So some of y'all might have seen this artifact in our museum as well. It's in the Tennessee frontier section, this pre-statehood section. So the cannon in this picture above was one of 12 that protected Fort ... You have to unscramble the letters here. So make sure that you are looking at all these letters here. What fort did this cannon protect? It was one of 12. What do we think? And this is actually on display in our museum exhibit. I just made a new word as well. And one thing I did figure out, I didn't know this until recently, Canva, the app that I was telling y'all about, that's a free app and teachers can get like special features as well. You can actually erase the background in images. So I could put this on here and I had a background eraser and you wouldn't see any of that green, any of the green background. You can erase the images from pictures. And these are taken directly from our artifact cards. So here is that artifact card. Okay, and Suzanne said Fort Loudon. So let's see. Remember, we have to add Fort. So I'm trying to be specific because as I made these over the last year, we all had to get creative. I've realized I have to be very clear and specific in what I'm wanting from people when they're doing these. So we have to make sure, just like y'all always do in the classroom every day, our objectives, our instructions, our expectations, everything, it's clear for the people completing this. And let's say I wanted to say Fort, and I forgot that. Make sure it's correct. You have to, on these responses where I'm wanting people to actually read the text a lot of times and find the answers, I want them to have the correct answer. I want them to be able to spell it correctly. I don't want any words missing. That way they can go back to that knowledge later on when we're covering this in our pacing guide. Good. Okay, and here's that artifact card again. And I think these are great for escape rooms and for the classroom because you can take a minute after you figured out the clue, especially if you're not timing them, and break down these prompts on the artifact cards. So you could ask students, the Cherokee and the British were allies for a while. What did the word ally mean? We could talk about how relationships changed, how we could talk about the time and do the math there. So a lot of cross-curricular connections. Not only are they learning about history, they're also doing math, and they're also reading the text. So there's a lot of cross-curricular things happening when you use these artifact cards. Okay. So our next challenge is another jigsaw puzzle. And these are, like I said, pretty straightforward, but they're fun. They're fun to do. And again, I told y'all that you could change it. So you can change the piece number here. So let's say you have a kid who finishes, like I said, puzzles in a minute, and you still have students working for 5. You can change these piece numbers and say, hey, you want a challenge? Why don't you do 66 pieces instead of 24? You can also change the shapes of these puzzles, which I will show you in a minute. I have an example of that as well. So does anybody know what this is? We actually have this in our museum, and it's on display. It's huge. Has anybody seen this? What is this? As I'm putting it together. What do you think? And the pieces will click as you're getting it. What is this? Any guesses? I see one. I get a lot of different responses to this in the gallery with students because it's kind of not something we see every day, right? It's a little bit different than what we normally see today. So this is a wagon. Good. And some of y'all answered that in the chat box. Good. And I won't go through this entire puzzle with you, but I do know we've had some teachers use this puzzle platform after webinars before, and they let students come up and put a piece on the smartboard, or maybe everybody's working in small teams. Whatever you have technology-wise, this can work. It doesn't have to be an individual assignment. It doesn't have to be a group assignment. Make it work for your students and what their needs are. So this is a wagon. Yeah, a Virginia road wagon. Good. So let's go back to our form. Remember, you have to come back to this question. It does look like a boat with wheels, Kira. That's what I was getting at. So this wagon, and I can turn my card around a little bit and show you. It's behind me, actually. This wagon is massive. It does look like a boat with wheels. A lot of students actually think this is a boat until I'm like, does a boat have wheels? Right? So it's a very, it very much resembles a boat. And that's what a lot of people guess it is until you see the wheels on it. Good. So this is another one of our artifact cards here that we have in this artifact card collection for this part of the gallery. Yeah, and so you would ask students then, how much weight could this Virginia road wagon pull? Use the text in this image for a hint. And this is the way they're trying to figure out, what I love about these is they're trying to figure out what they need to know. They're looking for that information. They're reading the text for information. They're thinking like historians. So how much weight could this wagon carry? Good. I see we have some competition in the chat. People are trying to get those answers in really quickly. Good. So good. And I wanted to be clear here because in my escape room, when I was planning this, I was like, I could put like 2,000 or 3,000, but you know, that would kind of be a tricky answer. And when I do this, I want to make sure that I'm being upfront and clear. It does seem like a lot, right? And what I love about this is we have these questions here. What materials is the wagon made of, right? So is this a sturdy material? Is it like our transportation items today? We can talk about how transportation changes. What type of transportation do people use today to move goods? And right, the friends here, you all. One thing I love about this is I think this isn't something that people would be riding in, right? It is used to haul goods and merchandise. So I kind of like to talk about this as it's the trunk of our car, right? We don't ride in the trunk usually. Doesn't have seatbelts, so I hope you're not. But this is where you use to haul stuff, right? Or a U-Haul. You don't ride in the back of a U-Haul, right? So something you'd use to haul. So always making sure we're keeping that relevant. And again, we have journal prompts as well. Imagine you had just left your comfortable life to set out on the frontier. You could even throw this in, this is a little bit later, but you could use the concept of Oregon Trail, I guess, but it's a little bit, Oregon Trail is a little bit later than what we're talking about today, so maybe not. But yeah, so we said up to 6,000 pounds. And I'm just going to show y'all, if you hit 12,000, try again. Sorry, not correct. And you'd go back. So your students have to get the answer correct before they move on. And if you're doing this as a class, it's a good time to stop and redirect and ask them to read once again. Good. And I have the little pieces from the artifact cards here so you can kind of see what the text looks like. So big wagons. Sorry, I lost my chat box. There we go. Big wagons like this, Virginia Road wagon were used to haul goods and merchandise. So you can talk to kids about the journey, about what this wagon was used for, again, how it's different, that change over time standard. So again, these artifact cards are great. There's a wealth of information and text and images that you can use and prompts you can use when doing these artifact or working with these artifact cards. Okay. This is one of my favorite things to use. The kids usually get really frustrated by this, and I hope you don't. But this is a crack the code, okay? And I will say that the smiley faces are not yellow in my key, and the heart is not orange. But go ahead and crack this code. When you get it, put it in the chat box, and it'll all make sense in a moment. So those symbols are going to line up with the letter above them. So if you see that symbol here, where is that symbol on our symbol key below? What letter is that? And just kind of work from there. So look for this symbol and it'll be a little bit of, good. I see some people quickly getting them in. Good. And this is fun. Like I said, the kids always get really frustrated with this because they have to stop and look at it, but they usually love them as well. So I have one that's the volunteer state. And a lot of times they forget to put the D until they realize the code also has 3 little pieces up there, 3 little symbols. Good. Good. Okay. So I have a lot of y'all saying the state of Franklin. And remember, when we're doing our questions, I want to make sure that I'm clear. The first letter of each word will be capitalized. May not be proper grammar, but we are going to capitalize each word just so it's consistent with our answer key. So I have a lot of people said the state of Franklin. If I can type, there we go. Okay, so I didn't capitalize the up, right? See what happens. Oh, it won't let me go on. State of Franklin. It's not usually capitalized, but again, just for consistency, we're going to capitalize the first letter of every word in this answer. Good. Okay, and now you're going to find out why the state of Franklin is relevant. Why did I just crack a code for this, right? Why did I just crack this code? What does this mean? So this gets into the artifact card that talks about the failed state of Franklin, right? So we have long before there was a state of Tennessee, the land where we now live was a part of North Carolina. And this is straight from the artifact cards, but the people were unhappy because the high Smoky Mountains separated them from their government in North Carolina. Why would they be unhappy that they were separated from their government? In the chat box? Why would people be unhappy that they were separated from their government? Feel the concerns are ignored. Good. Okay. Good. So they might feel ignored. They may not feel as relevant to people on the other side. Good. So the people on this side of the mountain declared independence from North Carolina and created their own state they called Franklin. North Carolina opposed the new state and Congress failed to approve it. Franklin ceased to exist, but in 1790, the area became part of the Southwest Territory. So right here, we could have a whole text breakdown, annotation in this. We could circle words we don't understand, underline action words, anything like that, and really break down why this is important. Good. Good. Okay. So, and then here I have, this is a picture of Marble Springs State Historic Site. The man who lived at Marble Springs was a leader of the Watauga settlement and helped organize and lead the Overmountain Men at the Battle of Kings Mountain. He was a governor of the failed state of Franklin and was the first governor of Tennessee. Who is this man? And look for a hint in the picture. look for a hint here. And what I did to do this is I went on Canva, again, that free platform. I put my picture in, I put a text box in, and I formatted it and kind of changed the transparency. That's it. Cool. Okay, good. So all of y'all are answering it correctly. Good. It's kind of hidden though. I think when I used this with students before, I did this with a 5th grade group last year using this image, a little bit different activity with this image, and students were very quick to pick it up. But when I showed it to my coworkers, myself included, my family members, we almost all couldn't see it. So I'm glad that y'all picked it up. Good. Okay, so we said John Sevier. Okay, I could type it in. I guess I should have worked on my typing and talking skills. Okay. So let's go on, see what happens. Good, keep up the good work. And any of my people who like SpongeBob growing up or have kids who like SpongeBob now, we're gonna throw in a little plankton there. So correct, good job. What was the hint in the picture? I'll go back for you, Kristen. Look right there. Do you see anything hidden in this picture? Yeah, good, Kira. It's the faint text in the top right. So it's gonna stop you for a minute, right? But if kids don't get this or your students don't get this, you do have artifact cards that you can throw in. Here we have a little bit about John Sevier. And one of our artifact cards, you can say, hey, I think we have an artifact card that refers to this, and kind of get them to dig into this text a little bit more. Good. Okay. All right. And here I just have a little bit, this is an example of one of the back of our artifact cards. So right here, I have a map showing the counties that were included in the state of Franklin. We have a glossary so students can look at those key phrases. We also have a little bit of description down here for the artifacts, maps, images, things like that. And this is on the back of an artifact card that includes a picture of the key to the state of Franklin Capitol, some information on John Sevier, and a little bit more. So a lot of stuff there that you can dig into with your students as well. Now, this one is a crack the code question with emojis. And these are super easy to use. I just went through Microsoft Word like you would with your cell phone and typed them up and created some gibberish codes, you know, something that doesn't make any sense to anybody but me, and made these. So using this right here, Tennessee became a state in what year? And you might already know this because you're teachers, right? So Tennessee becomes a state in what year? And use these emojis to line up with the numbers up top with that key. Okay, you may zoom in. Here you go. Click and zoom. Is that better? Zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Good, I see some answers in the chat box. Hopefully y'all can see that again. If I forget to zoom in, let me know, because my screen looks a lot bigger than y'all's, I'm sure, as I'm presenting. Good, so I see a few people have put 1796 in the chat box. Okay, good. Whoops, not 1996, whoo. Okay, so here we have another one. And I want you, it's gonna be kind of hard to zoom in, but Tennessee was the what state to enter the Union? And here I have, make sure to add the TH at the end. So using that code up top, hopefully you can see it. Good. Okay, and if you can't see it, then I hope you know it. Good, y'all seem to be on it. Okay, so we think it was the 16th. Good. And I try to make those hints pretty clear so they know I don't need to put, I need to put some letters at the end to make this go through. And I just did this through a response validation on Google Forms. This is what I'm looking for. Good. Great job, y'all. Does anybody have any questions right now as we're going forward? We're getting towards the end. Any questions so far? And this is something you could really use for, I want to say, 3rd, 4th grade, if you're working as a class, and you could tailor this to fit Tennessee history. I actually did one that was a little bit more in depth for a Tennessee history class from a high school, a local East Tennessee high school recently. We've done it with 5th graders, 8th graders. We've had some groups come from homeschool groups who have third graders who are working with parents or groups. You could really make this work no matter what the grade level, as long as you have group or grown-up participation or involvement. Good. Okay, so we have another jigsaw puzzle, and I have this pulled up once again, and you have to answer in this one. So this puzzle is a little bit different, and I like this about the puzzles because you can change. If I don't want to do puzzle pieces like this, I can change my shape a little bit. And this might be a little bit tricky as well. So we do our puzzle, we click the pieces together. I'm sure your students will be much faster at this than I could ever be because their brains are just so smart these days. The way they work always amazes me. Okay, so we'd have these puzzles that we'd put together, click things together, and eventually we would get this right here. So what is the first thing that stuck out to you on this flag? What's the first thing you noticed on this flag? The eagle, okay. What else do we see? Anybody notice something else different first? Okay, good. I see a lot of the eagle. For me, it was actually standard. I don't know why I didn't notice the eagle first. Thank you, Nikki. I noticed standard first. And when I've shown this to other people, they always notice the eagle first. So I'm glad I'm not alone in this one. Good. So this question, after you complete this puzzle, would ask you, what did you notice first? So some of y'all said eagle, right? I noticed the eagle. And you can have students write this in full sentences or again, just short word answers. I don't have this on a response validation because I'm not looking for a specific response, right? I saw standard, y'all saw the eagle. We're all gonna see different things. So just to make sure that students are looking at the artifact and kind of working with it in whatever way their brain works and functions, whether it's reading or images, anything like that. Good. Okay, and this flag is actually on display in our gallery too. It's a part of our artifact cards right here. And here it is. So this flag was flown by the 39th Tennessee Regiment in 1814. And then we have to think about what battle was this flown at? Where did they fly this flag, right? So we're gonna zoom in a little bit. What battle did they fly this flag for? When was this flag flown and at what battle? And this is, again, it's in our gallery. It's right behind me over there in a case, and you can light it up. There's a blue button students can press and light it up and get more detail. But this artifact card has the most detail, honestly. Okay, good. Good, good. So I have a few people saying the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. Good. And so we look down here. I have some answer choices too. So students, if they would say, oh, I think it was Andrew Jackson, right? He was important during the War of 1812. And I think he fought in the Battle of New Orleans. Well, let's try it. Oops, try again. We're gonna go back now. All right, so we're gonna hit next and we're gonna try again. And some of y'all said the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. So we're gonna try that now. And that's correct. Regis is telling us that that flag was flown at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. And that was a key battle during the War of 1812's Creek Indian Wars. So it has a little bit more information. And here we have the information on the front of this artifact card. And then we have a glossary of information on the back. So lots of information in these artifact cards that you can use, that you can pull from. Right, and this battle flag is so well preserved. It's beautiful when you get up close to it. When the lights are on and it's shining on it, it's really intricate, really detailed. It's beautiful. Okay, good. Okay, so we have another puzzle. I know y'all are probably getting sick of the puzzles, but we have another puzzle here. And this is another puzzle where you can change the shapes. So I changed these to round edges. So as I'm doing this puzzle, you might have seen this picture that we used in before. Who is this a picture of in the chat box? If you have an idea, let me know. Who is this a picture of in this puzzle? What do we think? I see some people guessing correctly. Good. Why did y'all think it was sequoia? What in the chat box? How did you know it was sequoia? Or how did you guess? The turban. Okay, good. Has anybody seen this image, whether it's in the museum or on the internet? It's a pretty well-known image to already know this is sequoia. Yes, yeah, good. But our students may not know this, right? Our students are doing this and like, who is this guy? I have no idea. Let me just change. You can see the full picture here in my screen. But on the artifact cards, if we have these jigsawed out, we have an artifact card for sequoia and for the Cherokee syllabary. So we have that there. And you can use this artifact card to really dig a little bit deeper with your students. So click there. We're going to go back. Good. And we found out it was sequoia. Good. And so we're going to say Sequoia invented the first system of writing an American Indian language called the Cherokee what? And you have to have your students read a little bit. What is it called? Have to dig in a little bit. This one's not explicitly stated. What do we think? I see an answer in the chat box. Good. And this is where you could really dig in with your students, right? What's the difference between a syllabary and an alphabet? Okay. I think, I don't want to answer this and be wrong. So I'm not going to answer that, Kira. I don't know what the difference is. If anybody wants to chime in, please do. But I have a guess, but I don't want to spout off anything that's not correct. So please do. Oh, Lisa has an answer. Go ahead, Lisa.
A syllabary is not where you phonetically sound out the individual letters that make sounds. Syllabary, each symbol relates to a syllable sound.
Okay.
So it's more like groupings. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's what I was thinking. I just didn't want to be like, oh, this is what it is, and then be completely wrong.
And we have a really good, we have a YouTube channel for the Historical Society. And Charlie Rodarmer, who's the director at the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, did a really good brown bag lecture not too long ago that's loaded up on our YouTube channel that talks about the printing press, the Cherokee and the printing press. And this is an anniversary for the creation of the syllabary. So he talks about Sequoia and his work, but also about the printing in the mission at Brainerd Mission and some other really interesting things. So folks might want to go out and watch that and maybe pull a part of it for students or visit Sequoia Birthplace. They would love to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I've linked that YouTube channel on the Padlet with our information for today as well. Good. So we said a syllabary. And again, if you had guessed alphabet, it'd say try again. But here we are, correct. So we have a little bit of information about Sequoia, and this is coming straight from these artifact cards. Once again, a little bit of information about Sequoia, his importance, the Cherokee syllabary, and we have some pieces from the Cherokee Phoenix. And we actually have these on display in drawers that you can pull out, some replicas in our exhibit that you can pull out and see pieces of the Cherokee Phoenix. So students can kind of dig into that as well. And this is the back of that artifact card. So just pulled from that. But if you're in our museum, you can also pull open the drawers and see this on display too. Good. Okay, so we're getting towards the end. Here's another artifact card. The back of it, we have this one that talks about the Cherokee Bible. A little bit talks about John Ross. And then we have some stuff on the back that talks about the Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson's role. So this act was signed into law by President Andrew Jackson on May 28, 1830. What is it? Suzanne, you are so fast. I don't know how you typed that fast. Good, good. Okay. So we said it was the Indian Removal Act. And in this, they're actually having to read and figure out what it is. Right here, we have a little piece about the Indian Removal Act, what it was, and when it was signed. We talk about Chief John Ross and his influence in our glossary, the Trail of Tears as well. Good. So we put that in and we can go on to the next state or go on to the next question. So I do have this linked here about the Trail of Tears. This is a map from the National Park Service. It's a GIS map if you click on that, and you can see different migration patterns, but this migration map is specifically for the Trail of Tears. And it's really interesting if you want to use this with your students later on. This is linked in the escape room. And students, when I put this into perspective for them, usually I work with students who are maybe 5 to 10 miles away at the most. We talk about how long it takes them to walk to the Museum of East Tennessee History from their school. And then we talk about how long the Trail of Tears was and how many states it covered and its impact. So I love using maps and mileage to kind of create those cross-curricular connections and those real life connections in their head as well. Okay, one final jigsaw puzzle. And some of y'all have probably seen this in the museum, seen this person, know this person's story. Do you recognize this person from just the little pieces of the puzzle I already have together? Who is this? Who is this person? Kind of gotten their face put together now. Who is it? Okay, so a few people have answered Crockett. Yes, you're correct. So here's that image there. This is David Crockett. I have a huge David Crockett poster that I'm going to be using for a school group tomorrow, but this is David Crockett. All right, and we are going to go back to our puzzle now. So when students have completed that, they'll come back to the form. Always come back to this main form. And this is one of our artifact cards as well, right here. So use the text in the artifact card pictured for more information. David Crockett's rifle is on display at the Museum of East Tennessee History. It's just behind me there. What did Crockett call its rifle? What's Crockett's rifle's name? I always like to say to students. Good. And if you can't see it right here, you can kind of dig in. Good. And students love it. Students always know that Crockett's rifle is Betsy or Old Betsy. Some of them get really excited. It's one of our crowd favorite, general public favorite pieces in the gallery. Good. So y'all said Betsy, right? If we had guessed Susie or Dolly, it'd say incorrect. Try again. But you said Betsy, so we're going to go on. Good. Okay. This is our final challenge. So in the chat box, you have to crack this code. Can everybody see the code okay? If I can zoom in just a little bit more. You are going to use this code up above to break the final challenge, to crack the final code and challenge at the bottom. Once you get it, let me know in the chat box what it is. Make sure to read all the instructions. All letters will be capitalized. There's an exclamation point at the end of your answer. What is this final code? Yes, good job. Okay, so let's type that in. Let's see if it works. Yes, you did it. Okay, so you escaped. You escaped the Museum of East Tennessee History. All the artifacts are safe. Oh, take a sigh of relief here. So yeah, this is just a fun way. I always try to include something like that at the end to get students kind of pumped for the final challenge going forward. So thank you all for being such active participants in this. This was really fun to make. Like I said, this is available for you in the museum or outside of the museum. You can also come and do a more in-depth thing in the gallery as well. That survey there, we're going to drop it in the chat box, but if you want to go through this later on your own time or you're watching the recording after the fact, the survey is linked in the form too for the Discover Tennessee History evaluation. So let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. If you have anything in the comments, let me know, or in the comments, in the chat box, let me know if there was something that you thought was fun or maybe you saw something that needed tweaking. Please let me know when you fill out that Discover Tennessee History session survey later today. And I think Kira will drop that in the chat box, or Lisa will. I don't have the link, right? Actually, I probably could put the link in the chat box. Oh my goodness, I haven't opened the chat on this computer. Oh, thank you, Kira. Okay, cool. All right, so the last thing that I'm gonna share with y'all before we move on is the Padlet and what's on it and the resources that I shared with you today. Does anybody have questions as I'm moving over to the Padlet? If you do, just put them in the chat box. I'll be checking periodically. So here is our session again. This is the link that we used. You have access to that link. If you'd like a copy of this, please let me know. I'd love to forward it to your classroom so you can work with it. I can lead it or you can lead it, whatever you want to do. Let us know if you want to be in the gallery with me working with it as like an escape leader. We can do that, or you can do it on your own time in your classroom with your students. Either way, it'll be fun and interactive. So what I used were these artifact cards here. So to get to those artifact cards, you need to go to teachtnhistory.org. That's our webpage, and it is linked on the Padlet towards the bottom. So go to teachtnhistory.org. This is the East Tennessee Historical Society's education page. This is where all our lesson plans are, all of our workshop materials, anything, our Tennessee history text, and those artifact cards that I used today. So you're gonna go to artifact lessons, and right here, this is the PDF version. If you are local or if you'd like a copy of these, please let me know. I'd love to get you a printed copy of these as well. But here are all of the artifact cards that we talked about with all of the prompts. So you could even print these out on your own if you wanted to. So all of these artifact cards, and they're all directly related to artifacts in the exhibit in the collection. And we have not made for the off-site escape rooms yet. We have not made this for all parts of the gallery, but I'm in the process of finishing these. So we should have one for all throughout our permanent Voices of the Land exhibit by the end of December. We should have these reworked. So these are all here with those prompts, with those images. Everything we talked about today is available on these artifact cards. The artifact cards are front and back. They're great to use to introduce or to, I don't know, review afterwards. And we have those for all sections of the permanent Voices of the Land gallery. So here's another one that you can use. All related to the gallery here. And the activities that I'm in the process of creating, like I said, that'll be done in the end of December, hopefully. We will have all of these artifact cards as a part of an escape room that you can do offsite as well. Okay, and we have these, like I said, for all parts of the gallery. There's also an industrialization and progressive era one. And then we also have one for 20th century Tennessee. So lots of great stuff here. They are pages and pages long that you can dig into with text, with prompts, anything like that. Okay, and like I said, everything is just linked here. And then here's the 20th century. We have any Dolly fans? We have the Cadillac. We also have some information on country music for our country music and Dolly fans, TVA and the refrigerator, different prompts, things like that. Smoky Mountains, a lot of different stuff that you can look at and use with kids. And everything is kind of laid out the way that we did with those Tennessee Frontier cards. We have glossaries, we have prompts, we have images, we have artifacts, anything that you can use to exhibit and introduce to your students. Okay, and those are all linked on the Padlet under our information for today. I also linked our contact info. So here is my email here for anybody who wants to do an in-person activity or a virtual. I'm happy to Zoom in or go through Teams or whatever you use to work with your students or with your class, do an activity like this virtually, in person, at the museum. Let me know. Here's my email, and this link will take you to my information on ETHS's website. I also have our curator of education, Lisa Oakley, her information here. Same thing, if you're interested, just send one of us an email. We'll figure it out and figure out how we can work with you. Use this as a resource here. I also have the EastTennesseeHistory.org link here. This is for the East Tennessee Historical Society, our main page. Everything here that you can think of. I don't want to do a little promotion here. We have history headquarters for any of our educators who have young children. Come visit us, Unlock the Past on the weekends. It is an interactive family space where you can discover and investigate. Come see us on the weekends. Little shameless plug there. And then I have, like Lisa said, our YouTube channel here. And hopefully my speakers don't go over the top as we are clicking on this. They might start playing something, so just prepare yourself. But here's our YouTube page and our brown bag lectures right here, if it'll come up. This is what Lisa was sharing about the Sequoia Birthplace Museum right here. So this is a great lecture. We had a lot of great responses here about Sequoia and about the Syllabary and how he got to this spark of genius, right? So this is linked on our YouTube channel as well, and everything is linked on the Padlet here. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Does anybody have any questions, anything like that, before I turn it back over to Kira? No? All right. Well, thanks, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you use these classroom techniques or email me so we can work something out. We can work with you, use this as a resource here. We are here to work with our educators statewide. So thank you all for being active participants. This was great. I did not expect this much participation. Super impressed. I'm going to turn it back over to Kira now.
Thank you, Layla. So let me just bring up just a couple quick things before we close out here. Again, we shared that link for the survey in the chat box. Be sure that you fill that out. That is how you will get your PD credit for today's session. Layla and Lisa will be sending you guys those certificates for you who are participating today. If you're watching this recording later on, again, you can fill out the same survey to get PD credit for watching today's session. For those watching later on, I check those once a week and send out surveys once every week. So just know that within probably about 5 to 7 days, at least at the longest, you'll get your certificate. So again, be sure that you fill that out to get your credit for either today's session or for any of the sessions in the past if you have viewed those. And then just one other quick reminder, if you, again, want the access to that Padlet that Layla was showing us where all the information is housed, again, there is the link for that Padlet as well as the QR code to access that. So, finally, if you haven't already registered for next month's session, we will have Tennessee State Museum being our presenting partner next month on December the 14th. And the title for their session is Tennessee 225 Artifacts Are Primary Sources Too. So again, another great kind of overview of Tennessee history, looking at some of the great objects in their museum. So again, check that out. And of course, you can find all of the sessions listed on the Discover Tennessee History events page on our Teaching with Primary Sources website under upcoming events. You'll see the little tab there for that to see the sessions that we have coming up in the beginning of 2022. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I will stick around for those of you joining us live if you have questions to answer those, but otherwise have a great day and we look forward to seeing you next month.